So I'm out chambering up a 300 HELLBRNGR today. And it's freaking cold out here. It's middle of winter. Not middle of winter, I guess. It's January in 2022. And I've got a bunch of different stuff going, and it just so happened we're shut down on a job today because an inspector did something silly and I had to override him, and it cost us a day. So I'm over here doing this kind of out of sequence, and I decided to put together a 300 HELLBRNGR in my left-handed gun. My rationale is I did a 338 and I felt it was flexing the system badly. I did everything right and the gun doesn't shoot the way I'd like it to. I haven't had real reason to make the 300 until recently. And I decided to go ahead and do one because I can run all the way from 100 grain bullets, 110, 112 grain BIBs, or other custom bullets. I can test this thing for concept. I can do a bunch of testing. I just ordered up a Douglas barrel in this case because that's what was available. I'm not barrel proud. Douglas is fine. Schillen is fine. I got leaderers, I got ABCs, I got, you know, the highest of the highest, hardest to get high-end type of stuff. Kriegers, Schillen, Bruxes, Bartlines, Liljas, Packnors, doesn't matter to me. What's important to me is fit and finish. I found that if I can check barrels for straightness, if they're straight, barrel them up, go. If they're crooked, deal with the crooked, go. I don't have any opinions on 3 groove, 5 groove, 4 groove, 9 groove, 12 groove, deep groove, shallow groove, octagonal, polygonal, 5R, ratchet. None of that matters to me. Barrels work fine. Now, does it matter to me that others have opinions? Not at all. I mean, that's what makes the world go around. So, a few things happened today that are spurring this kind of an explanation, fill-in, rant type of thing. While I was, I've had people ask me this before, why would you do a custom rifle? Why not just use factory chamberings? Totally legit. And I'm going to go through, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. This one really came near and dear because the builder that called me, a builder called me while I was out on the lathe chambering away on a 300. And he said, "Hey, what you doing?" Because he knew I wasn't on his job. His job is the one that was shut down. And I said, "Well, I'm chambering up a 300 HELLBRNGR." "Oh, what's that?" "That's a blown out 300 RUM. Blah." I forgot that this particular guy is an avid hunter and sportsman. He's been shooting the 300 RUM for 15 years. Got a great track record with it. It's his baby cartridge. In fact, I'll never forget, 3-4 years ago, he was out here on the range with a lightweight Remington Alaskan or something and 300 rum. And I'm watching him shoot, and he's shooting 180s and 210s or 220s. And it's just smacking him. This guy doesn't have a break. He doesn't have anything. He fired like 38 rounds. So he's very, very cognizant of and familiar with the 300 Remington Ultra Mag. So when I said I'm doing, he goes, "Oh, what's that?" I said, "It's a blown out 300. "Oh, well, that's interesting. So how much extra velocity do you get?" I said, "Well, you know, blowing it out, it's not so much about velocity. I probably pick up a few feet per second, but realistically, all the cartridges in a range, depending on the brand of brass and a few design differences, are going to react very similarly." "Well, then why would you do it?" And I was kind of stuck. We didn't have time. So I decided I'm going to kind of combine this video with reasons and rationale and answers and all sorts of different things as to why would I do this. Now understand, that's the reason. That's the point of the whole conundrum. I one time bought a, and I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it quickly again. My first try at getting the fits that I wanted, I called and ordered a Redding die for a 300 WSM. And then I built the reamer and the whole gun around that die. Because the number one reason to do any of this stuff is accuracy. If you're going to build a big cartridge that'll carry the mail, that'll get the power, that will put the bone to the animal out there 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 yards, then you got to be able to hit them. That seems trite, but it's unethical to just start flinging lead. There's 50 BMG will get the job done. But in most areas it's unsafe to fire a 50 BMG because it will ricochet, for instance, and go 3 miles off in a random direction and come down in town and take out a train station. But other than that, it's really hard to find an accurate 50 BMG. So it'll carry the mail to 1,000 yards if you can't hit the broadside of a barn. Big deal. You know, there's plenty of 50 BMG 1,000-yard shots on record and people and what have you, but for the most part, when it comes to repeatability, they're a minute-and-a-half gun. So he brought up an interesting question. Why? And so I'm going to do something here completely out of the ordinary. I'm going to read a paper that I give to people when they come in here and ask about building a gun. Because you come in off the street, you have no idea where to start. You're like, oh, I heard this, I heard that. So I hand them this paper. I'm just going to read this to actually get the ball rolling. It's going to be a little bit boring. But this is the reason for custom firearms. If you're happy with factory offerings and factory brass and factory loadings, and by all means, go. You know, if you're a 350 yard and under shooter, but unfortunately we have all these idiot TV shows now that show people best in the West shooting crap at unheard of ranges, and they're able to edit their footage. I watch some of the hits. I watch some of the hits on the cameras, and I go, "Whoa, he gut shot that thing! Ah, he hit the rear hip. He this, he that." I can see the shake. You can see when you've seen enough animals hit, you start to recognize the direction the fur moves. And then later they're down there looking and they turn it the other way and they've got a good, because they put another shot into whatever. The point is to ethically shoot at long range, it requires some fitments. It requires an accuracy thing. So, let me just read this. First of all, if this is a get your feet wet situation, which means if this is your first time, or if we're looking at a gun to pass any test of weight, accuracy, durability, dependability, always keeping in mind that it should be of a quality that if you decide to move up the ladder, you can upgrade, not start over. What that means is, there's a little more here, I'm kind of skipping around. What that means is, for starters, if you're going to have a gun built, you're going to start with a factory action. Start with something, go buy a gun from Walmart, and then make sure it's a gun you can upgrade. An example of a gun you can't really upgrade well would be a Winchester Model 70. Much as I love the Winchester Model 70, or a Ruger M77, or a whole host of things. So, what I say here is, start with a Remington 700, a Savage. The 700 and the Savage 110, 112, 116, there's a whole host of Savages, but they're all in the 110 platform, or the Model 10, or the Model 11. And in distant third is the Tikka. It's actually a Tikka, but it gets called Tikka. So, Remington 700, Savage 110 bolt action, or Tikka. There's your action. Now there's a lot of reasons not to use these actions, but these are all actions that can be upgraded if you're on a budget. Everybody's on a budget. Let's start with that. I build $20 million houses, and everybody is on a budget. I get guys come out on a $12 million project, and they're on a budget. So, one way These are the two ways two of the things that you have. One way, if you've chosen wisely, Remington, your Savage, etc., your factory rifle will get the job done in normal hunting situations. And as you decide to extend your abilities, you can add components as listed below and incrementally hot rod your gun, which means you can add a barrel, you can add a trigger, you can add a stock. This is a neat way. Or, if you want to invest your money more wisely, you start with a custom action right from the get-go. And then you can do the same thing. And as an absolute fact, I write here, for shooting stuff beyond 350 yards, you must get custom parts. Now we go into stocks. Actual stocks are an important part of the equation. A stock must have adequate stiffness and feedback, which either means an aluminum monoblock cast integrally or a structural flock to effect an adequate bedding area. This choice of stock is the second most important factor in my opinion. Factory offerings with HS Precision, Macmillan, or even a Savage Accu stock will shoot rings around their counterparts with the Tupperware stocks and wood and whatever. So, available stocks, from the heaviest and cheapest is the Stockies $200 stock, to the HS Precision, which I hesitate to push, but it's cheap and it's good, and then up to the various hand-laid Macmillan, etc., etc. I don't want to get into that, but let's just say that we need to have a good action, we need to have a good stock, and again, the actions are, as we said, and then we have the custom actions. I have listed here Borden, Stiller, Pierce, Kelby, Bat. There are a few custom actions out there that don't really address the problems, and I don't really recommend them. Barrel, single biggest factor, but I won't sell a brand. One thing I will recommend against on here is carbon fiber. Yeah, they look cool. Yeah, they have a thing, but they don't shoot. My biggest thing is quarter-minute accuracy. Triggers. Don't even bother with a factory trigger. That's just got to go, which kind of puts Tick off to the side a little bit, and Savage off to the side. So now we're kind of back to Remington-ish actions. Bottom metal, scope. I got a whole thing here of things you can go. I recommend loophole, for instance. But this is kind of a... But the biggest question comes back to, why would you, instead of just doing a 300 RUM, for instance, for a big 300? And the answer is, after we have this little prep done here on what we have to put together, we have to put together this vibration-free system with good solid components. The next thing you need to make that work is perfectly fitted cases, which means you must have the ability to short chamber the system to where your initial firearm goes down, or your initial fire forming goes down tight. You must have a well-fitted neck. This is one reason all factory offerings go out the window. They got a big old fatty neck on them. That neck opens up completely to seal, and that bullet's hanging in there, and it goes down the bore with what's called in-bore yaw. So you must have a chamber that fits your brass perfectly initially. Must have a neck that guides your bullet. That's the reason for the neck. And then, above and beyond that, you have to maintain that. The first firing is great. It's called the fire form. And a gun put together correctly will fire form in an amazingly accurate fashion. I can take most of my guns out and while I'm fire forming, shoot little bug holes. But now you have to maintain that, not wear your brass out, there's a whole thing involved. And the bottom line is that this requires a custom die. Custom die is a big expense. So now I say, okay, once you have to buy a custom die to get the accuracy, you have to have a gun, custom gun, and it needs a custom die. That all of a sudden is the reason that we can step up to something like what I'm calling the 300, excuse me, HELLBRNGR. The HELLBRNGR is not faster. It's not, it doesn't do, it's just in the class of the 3378, the 30 Norma, the 30 Lapua, or 300 Norma, the 300 RUM. But what we're going to do is, once we have to, this is what I just came to, I'm out there on the lathe. Once you have to buy a custom die anyway, there's no way around it. You might as well take the case of your choice and maximize it. In my case, an RUM case, now we can get ADG brass, we can get Peterson, we can get Norma, we can get whatever, Remington. We've got some case options available. We might as well fix the case. The case has got a problem. It's only got a 30-degree shoulder. I don't like that. So let's bump it out to 35 degrees. Let's blow it out to 10 TPI. That's the 10 thousandths of taper per inch. Let's get our clearances right. Let's have our reamer built with the small neck and our die built with the small neck so that we get proper guidance into the bore. And then let's set our tolerances such that with the tight fit and after it blows out, that we get, again, this comes back to the fact that we have to short chamber, which means we have to have a crush fit on the initial. That allows the neck to blow forward farther. So we might want to lengthen that, or we might want to leave it alone, but we want it to crush fit, blow out, and end up with about 5 thousandths of gap space. And that's really the reason. There it is in a nutshell. I don't care what you're building. I'm doing a 270 HELLBRNGR. I'm doing a 300. Right now today I'm just doing a 300 HELLBRNGR to test a stock, to test a gun that we're working on. And I thought, well, you know, there's no, this thing doesn't gain in the popular parlance velocity or power or anything over a 300 RUM. But what it does gain, we now have a case that that's tractable, that's usable, that's long-term, that's easy, it's like having a race car grocery getter. All the hot rod guys will know what that means. You can build a race car so radical that you bring it out to the track, you start it with another machine and you go bop and you shut it off. Or all the way back to, you can build what's called a street rod, which is tractable, which means you can drive it down and get the groceries. It's not going to overheat, it's not going to... Well, that's what we're doing here. We're building, fixing the problems, and then we can learn about, you know, how to maintain this thing, how to... First we need a custom gun with a custom die to cover the problems inherent to all of the factory offerings. And really, if you're a racer, it all makes sense because it's a matter of... there's so much you can do with an aluminum, with a, well, let me start the other way. There's only so much you can do with an iron block Chevy motor. You get your old 350 and you can go out and you can get your feet wet. You can get rolling and you can upgrade and you can upgrade. But at one point, you're going to take that old iron block Chevy, if you're ever going to race, you're going to set it aside. This is like, once you hit that 500 yard mark, you're going to have to take this factory Remington or factory Savage and set it aside. Now we're going to be at a custom. Full-blown custom, and let's get our parts right. Because also, one of the things that spurred this rant is I got a phone call from a salesman, and I hate salesmen. Bunch of supercilious twats. They call and they're like, "Hey Al, I hope you and yours are doing good in these trying times. I hope the family is doing good and that you're all staying safe out there." And I'm like, I don't, just pinch your little neck till your head pops off. You don't give a rat's patootie about me or my family or any of this stuff. You're just trying to get yourself weaseled in so that you can try to sell me something. The last thing I want to do is try to sell anybody. And what we're passing on here is, I have spent a lot of money on this stuff. And I've helped a lot of people spend money. What I'm trying to give to you is good information. Information that allows you to go as far as you want in this shooting game and not spend money stupidly, not spend money poorly. So in that light, I'm going to wrap up this with a total, I'm going to change the subject completely. I'm in the middle of testing some Wooxes and doing some Cerakoting, and I got a whole bunch of crap. So forget, I just told you the whys here. One of the things that I can't really fit into a video, because I was testing Woox stocks, and I said, man, I bet this thing weighs 3 pounds. But I can't really, I don't have any more videos to do on the Woox stock till I start shooting them. Let me just tell you, I've got one bolted together here. There's a number 5 contour, still full length. I'm going to cut it back a little bit, but as this sits with a Remington action, Woox stock, number 5 contour, 9.7 pounds. Now, when I take it apart, the stock alone weighs 3.1 pounds. So there's an answer to something earlier. I was saying I need to weigh one of these, and at the time my scale was all jammed up. So there's an answer to one of the questions that's been raised in the last couple of episodes. A Woox stock weighs right around 3 to 3.2 pounds. I didn't go tear the other one apart, because now I've got these things bolted up, and pretty soon I'm going to take them out and start shooting them. But there's the answer on the Wooxes. And the other thing on the gloves, I was talking about how I'm using. And I had gotten a bunch of information from a bunch of people, and I saved my kid till last, and he's the only one of these people that actually knows anything. And I had given you the opinion that when dealing with acetone, which I'm using for my redneck Cerakoting, that the last video I was testing latex, and wow, it seemed to be working really good. Nitrile and the other vinyl-y type stuff that I had used were pretty much melting, and I was talking about using neoprene, which is basically, I don't know really what neoprene is, but I had heard from people on the inner tube that neoprene lasts a long time. So I finally broke down, called my kid and said, okay. And he said, well, of those 4 items, the only one that's I would consider to be non-reactive is latex. Latex should be 100% unaffected. Well, since the last video, I've done a bunch more with the latex, and I will have to say that my initial assessments were all wrong. Of the 4 gloves out there, throw everything away except latex when dealing with acetone. Latex seems to be the answer, and it seems to be pretty much unaffected by acetone. So, that was my thing today. I just wanted to explain again why. This is kind of one of these, why are we doing this? Why are you off dinking around doing this, taking a 300 RUM case and modifying it, making it all weird? The answer is, I feel that I'm fixing some of the problems, as I like to say, inherent to the system.